Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and this is Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle, your host once again. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. Check us out at our website, www.legendssuperstitionmountains.com. For real, pick up a copy of Sunsets, downloadable on Amazon Prime. Just look it up, Sunsets, Trevor Tuttle. You can use my name too, and you'll find it. You get Sunsets, you'll load yourself up, have a good time. Meet Ron Feldman, Bob Shoes, Clay Wurst, all the good guys. We're through another week, 2 weeks into the brand new year, making the symbol of 2 with my hand down lower, which doesn't make any sense since you don't see it. But now we're going to get into this week's story. This week's story was something that came about, and I'll explain because it kind of has a process that works itself out. During the time we're wrapping up the initial sequence, the first 6-8 weeks of filming Legend of the Superstition Mountains, we're talking to the producers because at that point we figure, oh, they're going to actually broadcast this season. This is actually going to be a TV show and they're going to air it. Well, what about season 2? So we started talking about, because the area we're in along Horse Mesa, Black Cross Butte, and the Salt River, about some of the other stories in the area. Because we always thought, and necessarily they didn't do this, we always thought you should incorporate or drop little stories of other things in the area, of other treasure tales and so forth. For some unknown reason, they didn't care for this. We did a lot of that around the campfire and stuff, and none of that stuff ever made the show. And at the time, one of the things we talked about briefly was, you know, there's the stories of the Apache caves along the Salt River. And there was supposed stories that there were treasure caves. Now, this is when they're doing the Roosevelt Dam, and then later the Horseshoe Dam down by Apache Lake, and then later the Canyon Lake dams. So I said, there's the reference to those. We should talk a little about it. And since those are no longer accessible probably in most of those areas, but some of the theories and things specific to that. Part of this was because there was also a fundamental belief among many Dutch hunters, which I lean to a bit. There had to be a bit of an encampment at the mouth of Fish Creek to the Salt River because there's been plenty of arastras and other things found in that area. John Burbridge supposedly found 2 or 3 gold bars back in there. So we thought, well, that's a great thing to play into. Let's do that. Well, they weren't very interested, and of course, as things go, none of it got broadcast. So we moved forward, and I'd been scouting in the area, and I was very interested in that general layout of things. I talked to a neighbor of mine. Now, I don't know if he watches the videos, and if he does, he's going to love hearing his name dropped. His name's Ron. And I talked to him one day about it, said, hey, I don't know if we're going to do anything, but Frank and I are really interested in getting out there. Now, Ron is a certified diver out of the U.S. Navy. Thank you for your service, Ron. And he was very experienced in recovery and doing underwater stuff. So I thought, man, that's the perfect guy to really get in and bring in on this. So he was interested too. And then the matter just kind of falls flat and nothing happens. Every time I'd be back in the area, I'd be watching that shoreline and looking at it. And I have the maps. There's maps you can buy that are just for the waterways and the water routes, but they give you depths and everything else, and they give you the terrain on the sides of the river. They're very detailed. And so I had these maps, and I kind of thought of this. Now, these maps even go back further because Randy and I got them originally because an individual contacted me and Randy Wright about our interest in Horse Mesa and Black Cross Butte. This is like 5-10 years before the show. And one of the things they talked about was a cave with a ladder. Now, I can kind of say it was the Guano Bat Cave, but I don't know if it was. But he was referencing a cave with a ladder that we could get up into, and we should go check this out. So we'd gotten the maps so we could kind of chart out just about different pathways to get to these areas through Mesquite Flats. So I had the material, I'm going through it, and then lo and behold, another individual calls me. Now, this individual I come in contact with, his name's Collins or Hollins. It was Collins or Hollins. I can't remember quite what it was. And he was interested in the same thing. He'd seen a couple things mention the stories. And I told him, I don't have anything concrete. It's almost like newspaper stories about it said some workers might have found something or something was located. But I said, I don't have anything concrete and I have no real locations. And we talked about it. And I said, but I've always been interested in it too. If they're ever working on the dam to check some of those areas. And the other thing would be a diver. I don't know. I have no idea if you could do any kind of camera work under the water there because of how the visibility of the water and different situations. So he said, well, he wanted to really get into something. He would go out and check it out and he'd share with me, let me know kind of some of that. Because I was like, yeah, the water's going to be cold all the time. I'm just not know how feasible of an idea it is moving forward trying to do anything like that. So I didn't hear from him a little bit. Then I heard back from him and he said he didn't have any success around the areas I placed him around by Horse Mesa, which would be west of the dam, that end, by the mouth of Fish Creek, and then Black Cross Butte and going further west and south. And that was the target area I had because of filming and because of the areas of my interest. I hadn't really talked about much else. So we talked it over and on. He said he was going to pick a couple more areas and do some, but he'd stay in touch and let me know how things went. So some time went by, and then I heard back from him, and he said he found something very interesting. I never knew the location. So I'm going to say that I think he was possibly close to the dam, whether it was on the east or west side. He's somewhere near the dam because he didn't give me the location. And just sometimes the way he was talking about it, I got the feeling that he was not like in an area he should have been diving. It was probably an area that was restricted to boats and so forth. So he said he was exploring some different stuff and he found an area where it had been some sort of rock slide or something, but he felt like it might have covered something up. There was just something about it. He moved a few rocks and he found, with what he was able to move underwater, an opening. He only went 7 or 8 feet in it. He said it was too dark. Nobody was with him on the boat. He didn't have a tether line, he said, because I didn't have any lighting and the visibility is very poor. He says, I just had no visibility. He said, I made it about 7, 8 feet, just basically a little more than the length of my body, and I was able to get myself back out of there. But it looked like it was going to open up. I was interested, so I was like, okay. I didn't ask where it was. I don't have diving equipment, so I just want to hear what this guy finds and see if it fits with any of his stories. So I have no vision of what this is going to be or curtail what it is. But as this transpired, I talked to my neighbor Ron again and said, hey, would you be interested in that again? He's like, yeah, okay. What have you been doing? Okay, so he does this on his own. He did it as his work. So I'm thinking, okay, having someone who does that for a living is a great partner for this other individual, Hollins Collins. So I let Frank know and said, hey, we can get all this together. This would be pretty cool to do. This is a cool thing. It's not involving us physically too much, but we'd be out there and it would be interesting to know what's there. So I don't hear from this guy for a while. Then I hear back from him. And he says, okay, I want to maybe move this forward. I guess he got back in. He had his wife on the boat. He got a tether line. He said the next trip he made in, he found the spot. It was very difficult to find. He got in the spot. He got into the open area. He said, but it's hard to tell how open it is because it's very, as soon as you're moving around, all the silt, everything just goes crazy. He said, but with the light, I found one object to his right, I think he was saying. And he said the shape of it was odd to him. It didn't seem like it would be a natural boulder shape or something in there. So he thought because of just the length, width, whatever the shape, he went over to check it out, started to kind of put his hands on it and feel it. And it felt like it was like just perfectly flat, smooth. So he said he started kind of pulling on it just to see what he could, because it seemed to have a sharp ridge, and he felt it was like a box of some sort. Now he said once he started to mess with it, he said he lost all visibility. So he was there with the light doing what he could. He said he thought he broke a piece of it off and kind of started to break into it. He looked at his hand. He could barely see, but he thought it looked like some sort of piece of wood. He said he kept feeling around. He was able to pull at it, get enough of it open. He reached in, and he said, I don't know what I was feeling, but it was like a cylinder type thing. He said it was probably, you know, so big around. I don't know if it's rods, if it's pipes, if it's rifle barrels. I don't know what I was feeling. He said, I can't tell if it's metal. He says it could, I doubt it's wood because it was very firm. I could not pull it out because it was more length in the box. But he said, because I'm wearing the gloves and it's so cold and even my hands were numb at that point, he said, I got no feel for what it is. I just know it was something of a longer cylinder. I could move my hand a bit about along it. And he said, so I could only imagine what it is, but he said, I didn't want that. I just realized I found something that's definitely probably a box with something man-made in it. So I found that really cool. So when he left, he had GPSed the spot, he said, but he still had problems finding it underwater. So what he did the next trip, he said, I made another trip, and this trip I took a red and yellow vest with fluorescent red and yellow on it. And he said, I took some rocks and set it just a short distance from where that opening is. And he said, I set it there and put rocks all over it. So if I'm just coming by that area, if I'm flashing the light, I'm always going to kind of pick up something of it because it's going to stand out. And that's a good idea. So he said he was able to find it the next time, went in, and he decided to check the other side. He said over there, again, the visibility starts to deteriorate, but he saw something that he thought was like weird oval egg-shaped, and probably 2 feet high or so. And he got over near it, and he started to mess with it. He said, I don't know if it was some sort of a basket or weaved thing, or it was something else. He didn't think it was a pot or something, but whatever it was, there was something there, shape or form, and he started tearing into it, and it just starts falling apart. So he said that I was just like, what's going on? So he said he started to reach into it and couldn't see anymore, and he could feel things in his hands, but he said I couldn't get any discernible. He says it's funny when you are so used to sight and you don't have your sight at all, it's hard to understand. He said there was things that were smaller and bigger and looser, and he says I couldn't tell you if it was coins or this or that or just nuts and bolts. He says I could just tell there was different objects, and some would fall out of my hand while I was grabbing another. So he grabbed a couple things and tried to hold them in his hand. And he said at least he'd have something physical, because that was the thing he told me, is I want to have you guys come out with me when I show you something physical, and we know physically what we're going for. There's no reason to risk other people's lives or continue on this if it's just stuff from them working on the dam or just junk. So he said he went to leave, and the problem that happened is the rope snagged and he couldn't get the rope loose. By the time he was able to get the rope loose to feed the line to get out, because he said literally I had to have a hand on the rope at all times, he said by the time I got back almost to the opening, I realized my other hand, whatever was in my hand, had fallen out. He said my hand was so numb. He said, I guess I lost it and didn't even know, couldn't even tell the touch of it. So he got out, got back to the boat, and that's when he was calling me and saying, look, I want to go back, try to get some confirmation. Once things have settled, I think I'm going to be able to get in there, and initially when I approach very slowly, I should be able to get a distinct look at whatever it was and maybe grab something that was in there. I'll take a bag, I'll put some things in the bag and bring it out, and we'll have some sort of specific idea. And so again, I'm thinking, okay, this is the time I get Frank and Ron involved. Okay, we all go out. I don't know if his wife's going, but the 4 of us definitely will. This will be a nice little operation. Cool. And I don't hear from him for weeks. Don't hear from him for a month or so. And then I hear from him, and it's like one of those times where you just know things aren't going the way you were hoping. Because I was pretty excited about this, because it tells me one thing or another, whether there's Apache treasure caves or not. It gives you something to kind of go into, like, wow, what is it? You know, that's true. Burns Ranch was a perfect, I completely dismissed any sense of any possible treasure, and then I'm finding coins. He says he went back out, and he says there's nothing there. And I said, what do you mean? He said, I went back, I followed back. He said, I literally didn't even need the GPS, the trips. I kind of had it down, but I got over there, and there was the red, yellow, it's gone. He says, the rocks aren't there. I thought I was looking, but I couldn't even find the right. He says, I'm in the right area. There's certain things I recognize, and then it's just different. He said, I went over it and over it. I went up, I went up, I went down. He said, I went everywhere. He says, I don't know if there was a rock slide or something. It didn't look like it. It just, he said, stuff still had silt all over it. He said it looked settled. It was only been a couple weeks. He said it shouldn't have looked that natural and like it had been undisturbed that long. But he said, I went back. He said, I don't know the rock slide theory. He says, because I looked down I went as low as I could to look to see if I could find that piece of cloth. He says, nowhere around. He says, I have no clue. And he said, that thing had weights tied to it. He said, I put rocks on it, but it had weights tied, so it would have went to the bottom unless it's under debris. So he said, all I can tell you is there was a rock slide naturally, which he says, I didn't get that feel. Someone else covered the spot up and took that out of there because someone else knew about the site or discovered the site and decided to do that, so prevent anyone else from coming to the site. He said, I never saw anyone around. Maybe somebody knew. He said, I'll continue to look for it and I'll let you know if I ever find it. This was probably, I'm going to say about 2017, 2018. And I've never heard from him again. So I take it nothing happened. If he recovered something, he would have been able to come out. He would have publicly spoke about it because that was his excitement. He always wanted to find something. He talked about divers and treasure hunters and treasure seekers, and that was kind of his thing. He said, I've never found anything really significant. I've always found junk. This would have been so cool. Something historic value. So I don't know what happened to him. If he's out there, if he watches our videos, now that he hears his story, maybe he'll go get back to me on my email, or he can get through the website, or he can get through to me on Facebook or otherwise. But yeah, it was kind of like, it kind of sucked because that was also like that feed through of keeping us in that area when we first started doing the YouTube channel. Because I was definitely hopeful as some time went on that we would hook back with him and be able to film a series of videos of us trying to do some recovery on that, and it never happened. So there you go. Kind of an interesting story, a different story, a story that never really came to a real conclusion. It has a beginning, has nothing. It's a Superstition Mountain treasure story, I guess. We just don't know what the treasure, what the booty was going to be. And I'm disappointed because I looked forward to getting out there with Frank, Ron, and this other guy. I really looked forward to spending some time out there on the water and doing this because that was a completely different type of treasure hunting than I'd ever done. So I was very interested in it. And the fact that it didn't pan out was a bit disappointing because I enjoyed my time out on the Salt River and out at Apache Lake and Canyon Lake. And so I enjoyed the time out there. So I was looking forward to spending more time. So there you go. Our second one into the new year. Hopefully next one we'll come up with something. It'd be nice to have something with a map or something where someone physically found something and we can all be happy, right? A conclusion. It'd be nice to have that one. I'd like to be the one that concludes it and finds something really cool. Some really cool gold bars, right? Yeah, it'd be nice. Anyways, I hope everybody enjoyed that. I hope everybody picks up their copy of Sunsets or gets on Amazon Prime and checks that out. Because it's good for the Dutch hunters. It's good for the memories of these individuals in here. Everything going well. We got the Treasure Hunter of the Year awards coming up. We just got through the Mine and Mineral Show for the Flag Foundation. We got Discovery Camp coming up for the Dons of Arizona and all kinds of events. So we'll be announcing events and things as they come and go on. We are also starting in the midst, I was discussing with someone the other day, thinking about some sort of planned hike again this year, doing something. I kind of like doing that, getting people out. It's kind of nice, the camaraderie and just kind of the fellowship of that sort of thing. Plus, it's another excuse to get back in the mountains at another date, another time and place. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you're well. I hope you have a great week. Catch us. Might be some music dropping. There'll be shorts dropping, and you'll catch us on live, probably if I get back from Discovery Camp in time. Until then, remember one thing, right? What is it? Everybody say it together. That's right. I'm Wayne Tuttle. You're not. And this was Chasing Legends.